Good day. A lot of people think about whether one country, two systems is still intact. Right now, Hong Kong people, they are living under a lot of pain. But if we go back in history, definitely we can learn something not from the very modern history of mainland China, how it evolved into where it is now, but let's go back to the Qing dynasty. Now, as some of you know, the book fair actually was canceled this past summer. So I'm going to invite someone who just published a book a few months ago. His name is C.M. Yan, and the name of his book is 1860, Change in a 1,000 Years, and is about the very modern history of China, but go back to the Qing dynasty. And C.M. Yan used to be the chairman of a publicly listed company, semi-retired. Now, one of his interests is to talk about the tea of China. So, welcome. Now, C.M., we last met probably was, I guess, 4 years ago when we were doing some sort of a talk show at an interactive media channel as well.
That's right.
Yeah. So today we have the visual as well. So it is a good thing. With technology, we can schedule the time easily. Now, this is the third book. This is a trilogy. 1860 is the last book of your trilogy. So tell us something about this 1,000 years history, because you are just picking, I guess, 4 years of events, or is it just events that take place in 1860?
Ed, right, so good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me to be your guest. Now, you are absolutely right that if we want to understand what is going on in China, and of course in Hong Kong, right now, we have to go way back into history, because that is when the modern China was born. It was during the Opium War that China turns from an imperial celestial empire into the modern one. Right. Now, if we want to understand how China's modernization takes place and why it is all like this, the best way, just like anything else, is to go back to the root, go back to square one. Now, that is why I've written 3 books. And the latest one is the one that you've mentioned, 1860. Now, all these 3 books are trying to look into the Opium War, the start of the modern China history, and look into why China was like this, and how China interacts with the West, and at that time, mainly with Britain.
Okay, but before we go further into your book, is it part of Chinese history or Chinese nature that, you know, even during the feudal days, that the emperors, they like to suppress people of sorts, right? So that's part of the inside the DNA of Chinese people, isn't it? Because I see a lot of suppression during the, first of all, umbrella movement, and from the extradition movement, the protest of last year, we see there was a lot of violence. Definitely, you know, a lot of people criticize about the events that happened during last summer. But this go way back 160 years ago. But was the DNA of Chinese people like that as well? Now, not talking about the attack from the British, and then they signed some sort of an agreement. But, you know, like, what do you think about people during that time? Are they happy with the emperor, the Qing dynasty? Or are they like pretty much act like today, feel like being suppressed, and then people have to have some sort of an exodus? You tell me.
A lot of people say that, you know, China has been an empire for 2,000 years, and it's a centralized government. There is no democracy, of course. But one thing we have to actually emphasize is that the degree of power of the central government in the Chinese empire is far, far less than the power that the Chinese government is enjoying right now because of technology. Right, so at that time, people were saying that emperor is far away. There's nothing to do with me. 廣東話 say 山高皇帝遠. But whereas right now the government is everywhere because transport is much easier and people communicate by phone, instant communication. So it's completely different.
I find those in power, they are very lonely because they're like being boxed in their own little world, thinking, everyone is trying to do harm to them.
Right.
I don't want to be an emperor.
No, but look, even in the imperial times, even if the emperor wants to suppress, as you say, the people, he couldn't do it effectively because of technology. His orders would take 6 months to go to the farthest parts of the empire, right? So, and the local governments, they are very, very understaffed.
Yeah. So there must be a lot of abuse of power, from top down, because you say in Cantonese, the mountains are high and then the emperor is far away, right?
Right.
So, who is going to do the check and balance? It's difficult. So the local government would exert a lot of power to suppress the people.
Exactly. Now, everything is about money at the time. So the relationship between the empire and the people is tax, is money.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how Opium War started.
Tithe and offering, right? Tithe and offering. That's tax.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, everybody was saying that the opium is the cause of the Opium War. Now, that may be true for the first Opium War, but for the second Opium War, that is what my book is saying about 1860. It's not about opium. Britain wants to trade, which is money. It is exactly as it is now. The world is talking about money.
Okay, so just like Donald Trump, they just want to make deals. They don't
want to make money.
Yeah.
They just wanted to trade with China and wants to make money. And it's exactly as you said.
Not starting a war, so make deals, no war, right?
Now look, during the second Opium War, when Britain came to fight in China, they had to mobilize 25,000 people in nearly 100 warships, sailing for 10,000 miles.
From the UK.
And the daily expense is 30,000 pounds. Now at that time, it is.
Yeah.
Astronomical. Why do they want to spend so much money?
Yeah.
Astronomical, as you said. Of course, they don't want to fight because this is huge investment, huge expense. They just want to make money. Now, the reason they had to fight is that they couldn't find another way of trading in the way that they think is fair to Britain. That is the most basic reason. Now, and a lot of people misunderstood history. They said that Britain was trying to conquer China, trying to bully China. Now, but in fact, all the demands that Britain put forward was about money, about trade. And the emperor had no interest whether trade is going to take place or not. He didn't care. He said, if the British wanted to trade, let them trade. But why the war broke out? It was because of institution. Well, right now we call it the face of the Chinese. That is exactly why the war had to be fought. If you look at the present day, Now, as you said, Donald Trump is trying to make a deal, trying to make trade.
Always
Now,
try to make a deal. Yeah.
right. Okay. It's about money. Right. But right now we're still very happy talking about this. There is no war, and I hope there will be no more war.
Yeah. But
Now,
also during that time, from my understanding, is that the British, they want to set up consulates of sorts. So interaction with the Chinese people, that's something the emperor don't like, right? They don't want communication.
exactly. And that was the real reason why the war had to be fought. Now, that is the only thing that the emperor cared. Now, of course, the Chinese lost the war. Now, but there was the big seed of hate among the Chinese because the British burns down the summer palace. Now, then there is another huge misunderstanding among the whole world, especially among the Chinese. Now, all the Chinese were brought up, including you and me, that the British came and burned the summer palace, and that is a big shame of the Chinese.
Right.
And the British wanted to conquer Chinese, bully Chinese, whatever.
I mean, a lot of people might have heard of Summer Palace, Yuan, right?
Right.
But they have not been there because, it was completely burned down. But, it's just a name to me, right?
Exactly.
It's like if people haven't visited, like Niagara Falls, so big deal, right? It's just one place. Yeah. Or the Patala Palace in Tibet.
In a sense, they are similar. Now, we talked about this burning down of the summer palace only now. But at the time that the British burned it down, I don't think there will be more than 0.01% of the Chinese that were aware that there is such a thing as called the summer palace. Because it is the emperor's personal garden, personal palace.
Okay.
Of course, it's well guarded. So even if the whole palace was burned down, nobody, no normal Chinese, ordinary Chinese people would care because they didn't know. But
they didn't even know the existence of this so-called summer palace.
They didn't know the existence. They have never heard of it.
Right.
Only people around Beijing.
Yeah.
Then they knew because there would be frequent traffic and they served. Yeah. You have the cleaners, you have those servicemen.
So it's like bringing the shame to the Qing emperor, right?
The shame, exactly. The shame was on the Qing emperor. The shame was not on Chinese people because they didn't know this. And of course, they didn't care. So in a way, the British, they succeeded in putting shame on the Chinese emperor himself. And then the Chinese emperor died 1 year later. And the war ended 6 days after the burning down of the summer palace. So that was the reason I think that the British envoy, Lord Elgin, decided to burn the summer palace.
I don't like too much currently, like the DNA of the so-called Chinese Communist Party, but they also did the same evil deed to Tibetans, like they took over the Potala Palace in 1959 when they, conquer Tibet. But let's leave it to the next episode and talk more about your book. But before we finish today's episode, let me just show the viewers of this channel. This is the book, right? Once again, it's called 1860, Change in 1,000 Years. We'll be back in the next episode.
Thank you, Ed.